This is Tarot 101. It is the gateway drug into the occult, but like I said before, the occult itself is a gateway drug into mysticism, which is a gateway drug into studying the one thing which you will literally leads to everything. So there's 78 cards, and they lead into each other. The structure of the tarot, it's very complex. It's not that complex, but it's nice. It's holographic, like the universe. Every card exists in every other card if you know how to look at it. And the way I approach tarot, just for any like people that are into history or want to get the kind of context, I approach it through the Western esoteric traditions, namely the hermetic qabalah. And there's two main things you can do. Two main things you do with tarot. Okay, one concerns the normal thing that everyone expects, which is the world of time, and the other concerns the thing people don't expect as much, which is the world of eternity. So if you come over to me when I'm over there later in the day and you consult me for a reading, we're going to probably be looking at the world of time. So I'm going to probably be looking at like you and your situation and energy and patterns and whatnot. But if you want to like sit down with me and really chat, we'll talk about the world of eternity, and I'll show you how the tarot, like a lot of mystical traditions, actually expresses this. I'll just say perennial philosophy. I know, that's kind of a cliche, but does anyone know what the perennial philosophy is? Okay, the perennial philosophy is this like idea that there is this ultimate truth that has been guarded by the sages and the magi since the beginning of time, and as witches and occultists, we love that shit. We love an origin story. We love Egyptomania, and you'll notice throughout history there are these rhythms like going back in time and bringing back these occult secrets, these esoteric secrets, okay? So the tarot shows those, all right? And that has to do with hermeticism and mysticism and all types of things, and yeah. But it can be used for both. The world of eternity, mysticism, which is pretty much the path of realizing what you are transcendentally. So you can look at tarot and you can meditate on the images and endeavor to arrive at a place like a yogi would want to do, or like a guru. Like it's very similar, what it's expressing, but a totally different method. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like a lot of high magic is like yoga, but fancy. They just get extra. So whereas yoga, you're kind of like meditating and like finding yourself by finding that you're none of the things you thought you were. Magic in the Western esoteric traditions, which is what tarot comes out of, says, oh, I am all of these things. And it's hyper complex, and it gets you to that. Does that kind of make sense? So there is this kind of like path of liberation, path of mysticism, path of ultimate self-realization embedded within the tarot that people don't talk about as much. That's why I like to geek out about that, because it's just not much. I mean, everyone has an intro to tarot book, but it's like, how about intro to everything book featuring the tarot? It's coming out, don't worry. Is the tarot like the sacred, mysterious book that was handed down by Thoth in ancient Egypt? Not maybe literally, but the concepts that the tarot shows us are shared through a very complex line of history that does stem back a long time. But let's just learn these meanings of these cards, right? Okay, so if you want, you can download all of these slides for free. If you go to tarotmysticismacademy.com, there is a tab that I made just for all you guys, and you can download everything I'm about to teach you there. If you download it, you can use this guide to quickly give readings, but not only that, you'll understand the cards in a way that is more helpful to you to understand the richness and the complexity of tarot than going through a book that tells you all the meanings. Most people learn the tarot by going card by card. And listen, I started this shit when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and that sucked. No, like it's so messed. Like 78 cards. It's so, I hated school. I hated memorization, and then reversals. Don't even get me started on that. After researching the tarot and working it for long enough and seeing the patterns, I realized that you don't actually have to memorize 78 completely different ideas. All you have to do is memorize 14 ideas up here and 22 ideas down here. Now, it's still kind of a lot, but it's not that much because the ideas I'm about to tell you are much more simple than card meanings that seem kind of random and kind of cool, but kind of like, okay, I'll go with it. There's a logic to it. And remember I said I was a very lateral thinker? When you learn something, it's easier to learn something when you come at it from something that's slightly familiar than when you just learn it totally fresh. So, with that, Let's learn these damn cards. 4 elements. Do we know about those guys, the 4 elements? So there's this guy Empedocles. So we got to go back to ancient Greece for this. Maybe this is going to be a history class. I just really like history because, you know, people don't talk about history. They talk about magic and ritual, but it's like, if you don't know where it's coming from, you might summon the devil or something. You don't know what you're doing. You might summon Karanzan, I don't know. But actually, seriously, you gotta be careful with evocation. Okay, so the elements started with this guy named Empedocles, and in Greece they were you had these philosophers hanging out, and they were like, what's all this about? Asking the same questions that we do every morning when we wake up. We all have those questions. Right? What is this about? What is the reality about? The human condition. And so they were developing different models of the universe. Empedocles comes up, and some people were like, it all comes from water. And the other guy was like, no, it's air. It's like, no, it's fire. And Empedocles comes up, and he's like, no, y'all are wrong. There's 4 elements: fire, air, water, earth. What? And then he's like, the elements separate over time, and that is the entire lifespan of a universe. And then, when they can't separate anymore, they return and combine back together. And in that process, the universe does like a reverse kind of like thing, and then it starts up again. Now, this is not so dissimilar from like the Kalpa idea of the Eastern mystics, and it's not so alien to even some of ideas of physics with heat death. So, I mean, that's pretty cool for a guy like thousands of years ago to kind of intuit. So he had this idea of the 4 elements, and obviously now everyone's getting fancy with the periodic table or whatever they call it, and quarks and stuff, but and that's cool. But the 4 elements have lasted, and what they are now is if nothing else, they are a model of a psycho-spiritual model of matter, of interfacing with reality and experience. And the 4 elements show up in all different types of mysticism and tarot and culture and everything. So you have fire, air, water, earth. And I'm going to just like see so fire, what's fire stand for? Does anyone know? Fire is represented by the suit of wands. And the suit of wands, fire, it's all about ambition and career and creativity. The big thing is creativity. That's a big one. Water is also creativity, but in a different way. Fire is that you know how to feel fire? I'll tell you the best way to feel like the energy of fire. The moment you wake up from sleep, what is that first awareness before you move your body? Feel that tomorrow. Try to remember to do that. Just feel that first, like, whatever moves you. That's fire, okay? Now, water is what follows. It's the reflection of that. It's, oh, I was sleeping. Now I'm back in my bed in this reality again. Water's all about reflection. Water reflects, okay? So water is creative, but in a more passive, reflective manner. Water is also our relationships. Why? Is water our relationships? Because we reflect people. You notice how all your relationships just reflect you? Everything you like about people and dislike about people is really what you like and dislike about yourself. Come on, this is the Hallmark classic. We know this one. It's 2022, right? Water, it's reflection. Okay, so water's relationships, emotions, feelings. Air is, and I'm going to get a little hermetic with you guys, a little occult with you guys, just because it's important to know. And this is the thing that not enough people are talking about. Air, as the mind, is the marriage of fire and water. So when we're talking about the marriage of Shiva and Shakti, of masculine and feminine, of above and below, what we're talking about, and I'm talking about mystically and very generically here, is the ability of the illusion of self, the illusion of ego, because we know ego's an illusion, right? Can we get back past that? We don't have to go through that, right? Okay, good. So, I mean, listen, we're playing it all right now. I'm playing it right now. We're all playing the ego's illusion game. So ego's illusion, and the ability of the ego to reflect what it believes versus what is true, this kind of dance between illusion and reality, it comes in air. So air is the marriage of fire and water, masculine and feminine. We all have masculine and feminine energy, right? We all have, it's literally in the body too. You have these 3 channels in yoga. You have the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna. And if you activate them, you can draw the Kundalini up and hit the brain and get awakened. That's a whole nother game, but maybe another class. But we have this dance between opposites within us, okay? And the dance that happens, we can experience as ego, as a personal self. It is the dance between me and you. This dance right now, that you're there and I'm here, is fire and water, but coming to us through air. and we can conceive of this moment, and I can speak about it because of air, because air is mind, right? Did I lose anyone yet? Okay, cool. If you're still with me, I love you guys. Thank you so much. So what does air do next? Well, air is kind of, you know, a little chaotic, so it fulfills itself through matter. It realizes itself through matter, and that's kind of its own marriage there. So earth is the last element, which is money, in some ways career, health, all those things. Cool. So just to review, for divinatory purposes, we're looking at fire, which is creativity. We're looking at water, which is relationships. We're looking at air, which is mind. And I'm also going to add society. Because society is, and this has to do with Aquarius and the air signs, but a society is a macro reflection of ego. Like if you want to understand yourself, besides looking inward, you can look around you. Like we can look at the Starbucks, we can look at capitalism, this beautiful Starbucks coffee shop, and like we can see in the architecture a reflection of ego in the way it's designed. Not that it's a bad thing, but yeah. So air is also society, people, stuff, this. See, like we have an atom. There's a nucleus, and then or you know, whatever. Yeah. Okay. So then earth is money and work and the body. What we're going to do now is we're going to further divide those 4 elements in 10 ways. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over 10 numbers. Now, if anyone here is wants to go advance into the next level, what I'm talking about is the 10 Sephirot on the Tree of Life. This is a Kabbalistic thing, but you don't have to. So in the tarot, there's something called pip cards. Pip cards are numbered cards, and they have the suit symbol. So like a regular deck of playing cards, you have clubs and hearts and whatnot. In tarot, you have the same thing, except you have wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. And those 4 relate to the 4 elements that we just went over. The numbers come in and give us another layer of meaning. So I just want you all to know that right now, at this moment, because you know that the suit symbol from the guide, and you know the 4 elements, you could pull a tarot card, and if it's a minor arcana, you could probably start talking about something. You know, if you pull a card and you see a wand on it, you can say, oh, it's fire, and I know that crazy dude Joe told me it has to do with creativity, so it looks like you're working on a creative project. And I bet you wouldn't be wrong if you said that to somebody, okay? What we're going to do now is we're going to make our meanings more specific. We're going to narrow in on what type of fire is showing up for your client or for yourself or for whoever you're reading for. So we do that through the 10 numbers. If you want to download these bad boys, you can download this whole thing at tarotmysticismacademy.com. You can download it for free. And the 10 numbers go like this. Number 1 is a beginning. The best way to look at the 10 numbers is a creative process. And everyone here has been through a creative process. Whether you've made a work of art, or whether you've brushed your teeth, or whether you've had a child, or whatever. You've done something, right? So what I'd actually like you to do, it might be fun, think of a creative process that's meaningful to you, one that you can remember multiple stages in as I talk about these 10 numbers. Now the reason why numbers express a creative process is because everything expresses a creative process. One thing about the Western mystery traditions and occultism and mysticism in general, well, specifically the Western esoteric traditions, which is what tarot comes out of, tarot is very holographic. Holographic means that the larger scale is in the smaller scale. So like I said before, every card contains every other card. And every card is in itself a creative process. Whereas the whole, if you want to put your email for me to send you stuff and all that, Joe keeps spamming. So it's all a creative process, right? It's all Brahman, it's all Atman, it's all happening right here and now. So the numbers reflect that. So 1, which is, now this is the aces of the tarot. See where I'm going with this? The aces are the pure beginning. Now this is what people kind of mess up with the aces. The aces is not a result. The aces is pure potential. So if you're standing in a circle and you have an infinite amount of degrees around the circle of points, or 360 degrees of possibility, I could go in any direction and recreate my life. If I don't move, I'm in an ace. The ace is there. I could move, but I don't have to. It's an opportunity. The second that one molecule of my body goes in one direction and starts writing, like weaving the fabric of fate into that direction, now you're in a 2. Okay, that's the best way to understand this. 2 is an action in a direction that is already creating a result. Ace is, it's up to you, you haven't started yet, but it's like the pure beginning. So, if we take the Ace of Wands, and we know that Wands is fire, which is energy, okay, yes, and energy and creativity, we could say that the Ace of Wands is the potential for something creative, or the potential for energy. So let's look at the Ace of Pentacles. Pentacles is earth. Earth has to do with money. So if you had an Ace of Pentacles, what would that be? Yeah, so yeah, Ace of Swords would be like an opportunity or a potential for something related to the mind. So it could be a potential for an education, or it could just be a bright idea. It could be a light bulb going off. Cool? So that's the Ace. What time is it? We've got lots of numbers to go through. So the 2s are, think about it this way. You can, you know what you can really do? You can play with dimensions and like literally like 2-dimension, 3-dimension, and like and apply that to the element. It's so fun. But 2 is a direction. When we have a 2, we have 2 points. We have me and you. So the thing about the 2 is it's not, and this is where another thing people kind of mess up. 2 in tarot is not duality, because when I'm looking at you, what's your name? Michelle? When I'm looking at Michelle, Michelle is the only thing that exists. I mean that platonically, probably. But Michelle is the only thing that exists in this moment because I'm looking at Michelle. So in that sense, there's a unity here. There is potential for conversation and things are happening, but it's just Michelle. Now, what's your name? Jessie. Now, when you look at me and Michelle, what do you see? And how many people is that? Exactly. So this is really important. 3 is duality, because the 3 is beholding duality. And what's really going to bake your noodle is when you realize that all of this, when you take that 3, which is the beholding of duality, and apply it to 4, you get all of astrology. Because 3 plus 4 is 7 classical planets, 3 times 4 is 12 signs, 3 modes, 4 elements, and what I just described to you is something called the Tetractys, which is the father symbol of all occultism. It was a sacred symbol to Pythagoras, and no one's talking about it. It's so cool. So 3 is duality, but 2 is a direction. So what do I mean by direction? Let's ground it. Let's bring it back. 2 is the direction, and it's a direction in any of the elements. So if I'm working with the 2 of Pentacles, Pentacles we know is what element? Earth. Yes, and Earth is about, what did you say? Money, yes. 2 of Pentacles has to do with the direction about money. Sure, totally. It's movement in some way about the element. Cool, yeah. So 3s come in, and 3s kind of get like, 2 is movement, 2 is kind of masculine, 2 is expansive. When I say masculine, I mean it energetically. It's 2022, gender's not even a thing anymore. But we do like to play with it archetypally, right? 3s come in and give it form, okay? So 2s, we have that direction. What's your name one more time? Jessie. When Jessie's observing Michelle and Joe, there is a relationship that you observe. And that gives form to what's happening between us. Whereas if it's just us, there's just what's happening. We're in the 2. But when there's a third person, it's like, oh, I see a story happening. The story builds in the 3s of the tarot. That's why you'll notice in all of the 3s, there's like more of a scene. All the 2s have like a choice or a contemplation or a direction. The 3s have something has been settled. There's a scene going on, right? So the 3s have to do with form, with understanding something. If you like keywords, understanding is the key word. So when 3 comes to 4, and remember, we're still only doing the pips now. We're not in the major arcana. We're looking at the suited cards. When 3 comes to 4, 4 is a materialization of something. So that story that's happening here is manifested fully in the number 4. 4 legs on the table, 4 seasons, 4 elements. So you'll notice that all the 4s in the tarot generally have some element of stability. That's your keyword, stability. So when we take that 4 of Pentacles, that 4 of Earth, that 4 of money, what would we say the 4 of Pentacles means? Income, totally, yeah. What this guide is going to do for you, if you've downloaded it or if you're looking at it, is it's going to give you the combination of all the keywords that I'm kind of using. So if you look at the 4 on the small cards, 4 is a stabilization of ... And if you say you got Pentacles, you go to discs. I use discs here, same thing. Money, health, work, material, or the body. See how that works? Now you're going to notice that this guide might be a little bit generic, and that's good. Because what you're doing when you're studying the general patterns and archetypes of the tarot is you're studying actually what it is and not what so-and-so thinks it is. And everyone's got a book about what they think it is. But there are patterns that create relationships that are much larger than, I don't know, the lovers means love or a relationship. It can mean that, but it can also mean literally the creation of the universe through separation. You know? When you go larger, you have more to play with. It's just more fun. Now, 5s come in and they shake things up. You know? I always want to put a trigger warning when I say stuff like this, but like 5 wounds of Christ, that's a pretty big one. 5, fifth element of spirit. 5 just disrupts the 4, you know? So you'll notice in all the 5s of the tarot that it sucks. Just sucks. And life sucks sometimes too. But when we work with the tarot shows us through the 5 how we can integrate the dissonance that is actually useful for the whole song of life, you know? Like the awkward parts of the music that actually make the art what it is. Like the scary parts in the horror movie that we secretly love, right? That's why we go to the horror movie. That's the 5. So the 5s come in, they disrupt. They give us challenges. So the 5 of... I'm going to give you a fun example. You know the 5 of Swords? It's a really nasty card. Swords has to do with... Does anyone know? Mind, yep, mind. And 5s have to do with challenges. So what could we say the 5 of Swords has to do with? Doubt. What? Doubt. Doubt, yes! Doubt. I love doubt. I love playing that game. I love the doubt game. A lot of people do. And also, Swords has to do with ego. So when we have the 5 coming in and creating challenges, it is the challenges of the ego. And that's why you see, like, it's such a nasty card. You see one dude like looking over and being like, yeah, I won, I beat you. And the 2 smaller dudes carrying the swords away like, oh my God. That's like the win-lose situation of life. You know, when people look at, you know, it's like when some people in dating, they look at like, how do I win? How do I avoid losing? How do I like benefit from this? Very dark place. That's kind of the darkness of ego. That's the 5 of Swords. 5 of this, 5 of Pentacles, loss of money, right? Poverty. So the 6s come in and I love the 6. And 6 is the number of the Ascended Masters. And it's the number of help. It's a number of harmony. It's a number of assistance and compassion and the Buddha and Osiris and Jesus. And it's called Club Tiferet. And the 6 is all about helping pretty much. And you'll notice that in the Rider Waite Smith deck, which is the most popular tarot deck used today, the one that most decks are based off of, you'll notice that in every card, there's one person above and one person below. And usually the person above is helping the person under them. So it all has to do with some level of help. So in 6 of Pentacles, we know Pentacles is earth, we know Pentacles is money. What would the 6 of Pentacles have to do with? Exactly, generosity. Yep, most people stay on divinatory meanings and memorize meanings, which is fine. And then some people do all the weird occult stuff that I'm talking about. Not a lot of people can do both. So if you can go from something large scale like the Buddha nature of the material world as it is expressed in the number 6 in the elements of earth, that's freaking cool. And if you can take that and bring it all together and see, be like, oh, it looks like you're going to be helping so-and-so out with something financial, then what you are doing is literally the alchemical great work. You are realizing this large, abstract macrocosm in the microcosm. And if you're into any of the Western esoteric traditions and magic, we love a marriage of the macrocosm and the microcosm, right? We've all heard that, as above, so below. Has anyone not heard that? I should stop asking that question, because if I asked that question and I didn't know, I would not put my hands up. But yeah, so the as above, so below is like a big thing. It's the fractal universe. It's the holographic universe. It's like when you see those like Instagram posts that are like, the solar system is an atom and there's an actual I in the universe, and it's yes, that's the idea. Not quite that literal, but yeah, that's the basic idea. When you read the Vedas, it gets more like, I've never read the Vedas, but I pretend. When you read like Vedanta and stuff, it gets more like, oh, like as above, so below. It's like existential, like it's in your brain. Like the only thing that you can actually understand outside of your own brain is just your own brain. That's what they mean by as above, so below. So the idea here is we can only look within to look without, because everything is running through the brain and the spinal cord. I should really just stick to tarot. I'm sorry, guys. I just get so excited, you know. But you know, I'm probably picking up on an interest that all of you are kind of having, so it's your fault. 7. So 7s in the tarot are interesting because they're really about emotions. That's probably the best way to kind of simplify it. But more broadly, they are about drive. They're about the desire of the individual, whereas 8s are the opposite of that. It's the surrender to the group, okay? So you'll notice in the tarot, a lot of the 7s have to do with one person wanting something, especially if there's some kind of opposition. So in that way, the 7s are a little similar to the 5s. Now the 8s come in and they say, okay, you can have that desire, but you can't get everything that you want. You have to think of other people. So the 8s have this kind of letting go, relax, chill, surrender in one way or another. And that gets a little complicated with how it shows up in the suit, but if you really chew on these ideas and look at the images, it'll make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, and there's going to be a moment where we're like, this doesn't make sense to me, shoot me an email and I'll tell you why it can make sense, how it can make sense. That said, a lot of this stuff is very subjective. It's a subjective art, you know, so you're going to, when I asked you to like meditate on this and read the thing and think about it, it's like it's for you to create the tarot within you. Because I can talk about tarot all day, but my tarot is not going to be your tarot, and your tarot is not going to be my tarot. You create it within you over time. You might say that the 8s are connected to the intellect and choice in a way, especially choice that's rational as opposed to a drive of the 7s that's emotional. Not that emotions are irrational, but I guess in Western thinking, they have been made so over time. So I know I told you this was a creative process, and I kind of lost that, but it still is a creative process, because in a creative process, what do you have? You have the direction of the 2, you understand the project in the 3, you materialize your first draft in the 4. I obviously didn't have a first draft for this presentation, it's fine. In the 5, you have challenges, you have disruptions, right? We all have a challenge, and oh my God, it's not going exactly as I thought. And then in the 6, you fix those challenges. 6 is fix. And in the 7, you pursue forward. You say, okay, I fixed the challenge, I'm going to keep going. And in the 8, you have another moment of, okay, well, can't have it exactly as I want it, so let me make some more adjustments, let me make some more choices. And then in the 9s, it's complete. So the 9s, and this is where another thing where I like to kind of like challenge people on, 10s are not completion. 9s are completion. 9 is the end of the road. 9 is the fruit of the labor. It is done. So 9 of Cups is happiness. You got your wish. 9 of Swords is actually trauma, but it has to do with the mind. It's the descent of madness. It's like the result of it's like Game of Thrones, you know? If you really want to understand the Suit of Swords, you watch Game of Thrones, you'll get it. So how automatic reactions and feelings precipitate actions and vile things, and then everybody dies, right? So that's the Suit of Swords for you. In the discs, you have the 9 of Pentacles. 9 of Discs is independent woman that needs no man. Like, she got her shit, right? Work. So that's the 9s. It's the completion of the process. The 10s are the overflow and the excess. I like casual. Is the excess of the process. So that's when the actual fruit falls from the tree. And what happens when a fruit falls from the tree? What? Deteriorates. Seed, yeah, I was going for the seed thing, but deteriorate, actually, that's a really good one, because the deterioration is the 10 as well. It's the deterioration and the seed that becomes the next tree or whatever the plant is. So the best way to understand the 10 is like, is anyone an artist here that has exhibited work, or a performer, or a spokesperson? Spokesperson, artist, have you exhibited your work? Cool. How many people right now do you think are creating artwork because they saw your artwork? 1 billion. Wow, that's awesome. But you know, like, think about all the people that your art has touched, whether it was 1 or 1 million. It probably stirred something in someone, right? So that is your 10 that you're gifting to them, right? So you're a spokesperson. What kind of stuff do you? Okay, so you're saving the world, literally, quite literally. Yeah, I'm pretending to save the world. You're actually saving the world. So that's the 10. You have fulfilled yourself and your life enough in the 9 and have found your completeness that it's now overflowing as a 10 into other people's worlds. That's so cool. That's what the 10s are all about. The thing about the 10s is it is an overflow. So if you don't give it away and give back, it's not good. So that's why the 10 of Pentacles, you see a whole like city patriarchal, not patriarch, but like you see like this old man in the generations, and in the 10 of Cups you see the happy family. So you can take the Suit of Cups, you can see a whole story of a relationship that ends in happiness in the 9 of Cups, but overflows into new life in the 10 of Cups, literally, right? Cool. So that's the pip cards, and that's 40 cards of the deck, which is over half the deck. And all you have to know is 10 numbers and 4 elements, and then play with their relationships. When we're using symbolism, we're almost always using symbolism for conventionality and to achieve a purpose and to achieve an understanding. And it's kind of like numbers. Like, numbers in themselves aren't real, especially like the system of numbers, like the 10 decimal system isn't real, but pi is real, right? But 3.14 is like not real. But the proportion that we do the thing with the circles is real. So the symbols that you use don't have to, it's up to you generally. A lot of this stuff comes from Golden Dawn, and this is why I like history a lot, because then you actually see where people are trying to blind you and making shit up. I'm actually just making shit up all as I go along. But I like how much fun we're having. And a lot of people do create these blinds in occultism because they want to mislead you, and they want to test you, and they want to whatever. But you know, the Eastern mystics do it too. I mean, they're like ninjas. You go to a guru and they're like they make you do some crazy shit, and it's fun. It's a head game. All this stuff's a head game. Life's a head game. So thank you all so much for coming to my TED Talk, my Tarot Talk. If you want to jump into the wormhole of esoteric tarot and jailbreak reality, I have a lot of free courses and free classes online. So don't hesitate to reach out to me with questions. And yeah, thank you so much.